So today I have just had a breakfast and I kind of wanted to make a video when I got back because trying to show my cap. You can actually see it in this light better. But yes, I have to admit though, I was walking around like this, as you can see, and yeah, it was not pleasant actually walking around this area dressed like this because I don't know, but I feel like the world is at war with Islamic people, and see when you see people dressed up like with women wearing full veils. There was two of them on this. So I went to Premier Inn. They've got a whole new buffer area. They've renovated a lot, and in this place there was mostly Westerners, and I think 3 Islamic group people. One was just males, and the guy reminded me, the father reminded me of my uncle. You know, I know that there's a lot of mental illness in all sort of races and all sorts of religions, but yeah, I feel like I can recognise it because of my uncle. I feel like I can recognise mental illness, and you know, my uncle does some strange things. You know, waking up he came over this weekend, and you know, he wanted to sleep in my bed because my parents are here, so they were in their bed and he was in my bed, and that's okay. And you know, I let him have it, but I don't know, he couldn't stay in one place. It was kind of constantly changing, and then he started waking up at 6 in the morning and really heavily walking up and down the hallway. And I don't know, there's a lot of sort of small things that he does. You know, you can give him food and he literally just eats it one item at a time. So he eats all the vegetables, all the rice, all the meat. Usually it's the things he likes the most that he eats first. But it's just a lot of things that he does is just strange ways of doing things, and it's mostly small stuff, but how he sometimes looks, the look in his eyes that sometimes makes you think that he's not quite there, and you know, I can recognise mental illness in him, and I can recognise it in my mum too. You know, I could try and talk about Gaza, and no matter what I say, they just assume that I'm supporting the people of Gaza rather than trying to make explanations as to why the civilians in Gaza are not like the civilians in England, and they couldn't understand this. And then I was kind of thinking, well, why can't they understand this? And I just think, well, actually, because I think my mum is a complete idiot. I think my uncle too is bipolar and mentally ill, and this is the reason why they see the average civilian in Gaza as being similar to the average citizen here. Why? Because they themselves are not very bright, not very educated. I can't have a conversation with them because my mum just winds me up so much, and you know, I know that it's not to do with race or even religion. It's to do with people who haven't had many lives. I think my mum's living her first life as a human, and I think my uncle's living his second life. But yeah, people who haven't had many lives don't see things from the right perspective or the right level or with the right depth. And you know, everything I was actually saying it kind of against Gazans, but they seem to turn it upside down in their head and act like I was for it. And yeah, I just found it kind of strange, but I guess they just weren't thinking from, you know, I could say I want to do what's best. I think what should happen should be best for the world, and they would be like, yeah, we need to protect the Gazans. Oh, okay, I wasn't saying it like that. I was saying it the other way around. But anyway, you couldn't explain that to them because they couldn't understand it because they saw themselves as being very similar. And I bet if my mum was born in an Islamic country, she would just be indoctrinated by whatever the people, you know. A lot of people tend to worship power. This is on whole. A lot of people worship the thing that's most powerful. If they see Christianity as being powerful, they would choose Christianity. If they see Islam as being powerful, they would choose Islam. But yeah, I think the truth about Islam is that there's loads of bad practices and indoctrinations, and I can't understand why people would walk around dressed up like in an Islamic. Like I like medieval period costumes. You know, I love medieval period. If people were dressed around like medieval period costumes, I think that'd be quite nice. You know, I have loads of costumes and even past costumes. It's kind of nice, but I wouldn't wear it on a just a regular daily thing. I wouldn't wear it as a daily thing, and the Islamic one is worse because, you know, it doesn't look nice, and it just looks, you know, it reminds me of savage times and stuff, and so when walking around like this, when you're surrounded by or not surrounded by, but when you are covered by Islamic people, or when you know you're in an Islamic area, it almost feels like they know a war is here, and they see us as being, what's out of place. The world used to be like all full of medieval people, and now what? A bunch of Westerners have come with Western ideologies and Western thinking and modern, they see this as the change. They see this as being what's taking over from the past, and it's taking over what's from the past. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that the world has changed, and we've got we're better at talking. We're better at talking, we're better at explaining things, we're better at rationalizing, we're better at having conversations, and they might look at people who talk like me as just being like, what? Why are you talking so fast? Slow down. You need to slow down. When I'm just like, why are you talking so slowly? No, you need to speed up. Don't you have things to say? Like, come on, why you aren't intelligent? Why are you not thinking that actually being able to speak fast is actually quite a good thing? Because it means that you have lots to say. And maybe the reason why you have lots to say is because you've evolved a lot and you've now got a huge amount of things that you want to say. And then, well, if you just want to talk like this and say things like, Allah is all forgiving and Allah has a gate that's always open. But to me, that just sounds like nonsense. That just sounds like absolute nonsense. Who's Allah? What's this gate? What are you talking about? Why would I want to go to this gate that's always open? I mean, I want to have a better life. I want to have a nice house. I want to have, this is the Western thinking, this whole, I want material stuff, yes, but I realize that I'm going to have to work hard to get this material stuff, not just, I want rivers of milk. I mean, that just sounds disgusting. He said in this interview that I watched that heaven is 72 virgins. Why would I want 72 virgins? I mean, that's just people who are shit at having sex. I mean, I don't really want sex, but the last thing I want is a virgin. And then there's the whole river of milk. And then there's the whole river of milk. I mean, that just sounds like, well, in 5 days' time it's going to be rotten. It's going to be smelling like cheese or rotten milk. I mean, did you really want rivers of smelling rotten cheese near you? I mean, that's what milk is. Milk lasts for 5 days and then it starts rotting. And yeah, I wouldn't want to swim in milk. I wouldn't, you can't see what's in the water. So if there's animals in there, I don't know. It's the whole idea of rivers of flowing milk being paradise. I just think that's absolutely gross and just sounds like it's just days away from being rotten. Have you ever smelled rotten milk? Come on, that's awful. And I don't know, but their ideologies, their beliefs is just completely, it's insanity. I think it teaches people to ignore truth and facts and stuff like this. And yeah, so I think the world would be so much better without this nonsense, this religion of nonsense. But at the same time, I feel like it's here for a reason. It's here so you can work out who the dangerous ones are. So you have one choice, which is just to recognize that this religion was formed. People would ask, why did Muhammad have sex with a 6-year-old? Well, obviously, or have sex with a 9-year-old, should I say. Why did he have sex with a 9-year-old? People would say, oh, that was his only mistake. No, it wasn't. Actually, every single thing that he did was not good. He was not a good representation for how he should be. All the 11 wives and all the excuses that he had, for war and stuff. All the people that want to start war, all the people that want to have 11 wives, all the people that want to marry children when they're adults. These are all people that want to have an excuse for something. And so they liked Muhammad because he has an excuse for all this. And his excuse was simply this Allah's law, and then creating a bunch of laws that I do not agree with and stuff. And if you think that having sex with a 9-year-old was his only crime, then I think that's just a blind to all the other things. And the reason why he had sex with a 9-year-old, or supposedly had sex with a 9-year-old, should I say, is because it was supposed to say that this guy, that was the nail in the coffin. This guy is not a man from God, and if you want to think that he's a man from God, then why? You can list it. There's a big long list of things that he did wrong, and if you only want to just think of one thing, well, okay, stop worshipping the religion. And the reason why he did that is to try and deter people from worshipping it. And if they all want to be ignorant to everything that he did, then that's just a sign that these people are not good. So you can handle it in two ways: thinking that these people are not good because they've chosen this religion, thinking that these people have been brainwashed into the religion. And that's also not good, because they're going to brainwash their children into believing it. They're going to be willing to fight for the wrong cause. They're going to be willing to fight for the wrong thing. But then you also have to think about the longer scale. If these people are brainwashed into believing it. If they die and come back, they're probably still going to be brainwashed. Their soul has been brainwashed into believing it. And then when they die and they come back, and they're still going to be, and this problem is going to get worse and worse. And I think it has got worse and worse. And I think the only real reason is to just cause problems and to punish and to, for all the people that got burnt for saying something against Muhammad, that was your punishment for once believing that it didn't matter if this happened to other people. People who were in Islam, they might see that other people are getting burnt for insulting Muhammad, and they might think, what, I didn't get burnt, I'm okay. They might have even been the crowd that helped beat up someone. I'll have a kick. I know that there's 20 people around me, they're all going to have a kick. I don't mind having a kick. And then suddenly you realize that actually one day you want to leave. Maybe you've seen the same faults in it and you want to leave. And then the same thing ends up happening to you. And whatever happens to you is your punishment for all the people that have been abused and burnt and kicked. And you were in a religion that was doing this to so many people, and you stayed blind and ignorant to it all your life. And if something happens and you find yourself facing the same punishment that all these other people have faced, this is kind of your punishment for not realizing that they were doing this to people like you. A lot of people think, I don't care what happens to other people so long as it doesn't happen to me. And if this has happened to them for not leaving, then I'm not going to leave. But when you start realizing and waking up to that, actually this is wrong, this is bad teaching, this is bad practice, and you, by staying loyal to this bad practice, you are staying loyal to deception and evil and stuff, and you too want to leave. And then you might find that the same thing that happened to all these other people that it happened to, it's going to happen to you. And this is kind of your punishment for not caring. And there's some, I don't know how many people have tried to leave Islam only to find themselves getting killed in a very vicious way. I don't know how many people that has happened to, but I bet it's happened to a lot. And by being a Muslim, me saying this could get me killed. Now, if you are someone who thinks that I deserve to be killed for what I've been saying, then if there comes a time where you too start seeing these same faults that I'm seeing and what many other people have seen, if that too ends up getting 20 people to all kick you up until you die, if that's what happens, then on that time that this happens, you're going to realize that I was right, and you're going to realize that this punishment that you face would be the punishment for hearing people say things that I'm saying now, and for you thinking that they do deserve to be hit or beaten or killed or something like this. And I don't know, there's just so much evil in this, and there's so much evil in the people that want bad things to happen to people for speaking out against it. And I'm very concerned because there's so many of these mosques in England. I wasn't really aware of it. It was only when I started seeing medieval people wearing medieval Islamic clothing in this area that it's suddenly become like a real issue. I guess I always knew that there was quite a lot of pockets in Birmingham, but I think with all the bin cancellations, there's been a lot of the news where you actually see all these Islamic areas, and the massive piles of trash that is left behind. I think it's because the councils aren't getting the council tax, so they're refusing to do the bins or something like this. And there's been a lot of news on, at least recently, about these sort of pockets of Islamic areas, and I don't know, I think it's okay if there's small pockets, and if I can just say, I'll just avoid those pockets. But yeah, when those pockets start growing, and they start growing into your own area, I think you could only understand it if it is in your area. We went somewhere in English Heritage yesterday, and there was no Muslim in sight. This was very peaceful, very nice. There were lots of landscapes. Everything seemed fine and normal. And if you're living in an area like that, then you won't understand the threat or the real threat that Islam poses. But if you're someone who actually lives in an Islamic area, and you just feel the bad energy, the bad vibes, me walking around dressed up in army clothing really does make me feel like I'm at war with these people, because it's almost like spiritually they know that we as modern people do not like medieval times, but they, as being weirdos, like the medieval look, the medieval dress sense, and they want to keep things back, and they see us as the invaders. But you know what, if they see us as the powerful ones, then they will have no they won't want to make war with us because we are the ones with the most power. And we are the modern people, the non-Islamic people are the ones with the most power because we have atomic bombs. We have, we have big nuclear weapons. We have a lot more weaponry than the Islamic culture, and therefore we do have the power. But I think a lot of Islamic people are seeing the modern people as not having power because we're all like tolerant to, different races, different religions, and so they're seeing us as weak because they're seeing this as foolishness. That they're training up an army, they're brainwashing people into false ideologies and backward teachings, and they are being ignorant to everything that they are doing. So they are seeing this ignorance that lives inside modern people.